So we got to the winery, got set up, found out where to park. There's no hookups at this winery, so that's why I dumped at the campground. It was only 2 nights at the campground, but I wanted empty tanks. So we boondocked at the Harvest Host location, and then we drove over to Parvin State Park. And we walked for about 4.5 miles or so. Then we went back to the rig, which was set up next to the vineyard. We enjoyed a glass of their wine and some sandwiches. It was too cold to sit outside and look at the vineyards. Now, Friday was 90 degrees, I think, maybe 88. Maybe I exaggerate. Maybe it was 88. Saturday was in the 80s and rain. And here it is Sunday. It's too cold to sit outside. You gotta love the weather, folks. We put up the reflectix in the window. We put up the foam insulation for the ceiling vents. And we went to sleep. It was 42 degrees that night, Sunday night. Unreal. The next day, we woke up, had breakfast, hooked up, and drove a full hour today to Natalie Vineyards, Natali Vineyards in Cape May Courthouse, New Jersey. When we saw the address, we thought we were going to be parked at a winery attached to the courthouse in Cape May. But apparently not. Apparently there's a town called Cape May Courthouse, just north of Cape May. So there's our second Harvest Host location for the trip. And driving from the one winery to the next, we hopped off the Garden State Parkway. We got tired of their tolls. We wanted to see some local scenery, so we drove along the New Jersey shore. We visited Sea Isle City. Never heard of it, but really a cute little town. Very touristy, a lot of restaurants, a lot of gift shops. And to get there and to get off of the isle, because it is an isle, an island, you had to go over a drawbridge. And when I first saw it, the GPS confirmed with our height, weight, length, and width, we would make it. And boy, did we just barely. I think we had like 2 inches, an inch on either side, and I have no idea about the clearance up top. But it was a white knuckle finagling through it because it wasn't just a straight drive. You had to go around the booth, the toll collector booth, and then back around again. And I looked at Trish and I said, that wasn't fun, and I'm not doing that again. So when we were leaving Sea Isle city or town, we I guess it is a city because that's what it's called. We bypassed that drawbridge and took a regular bridge. Much more comfortable. You got to reduce your stresses, right? I just reduced one of mine. So we got to Natalie Winery. We checked in, bought a bottle of wine, And we also bought some dark chocolate covered biscotti, which was delicious. So we finished that, had a glass of wine. We headed over to Cape May Park and Zoo. Now, we're not really big into zoos. I'll just leave that there. But there wasn't many other parks in the area with a lot of hiking trails, so we figured, hey, you know what? We'll go and we'll kill a half hour. Turns out this place was really nice. Free to get in. They give you a map. Really nice trails going around the park, around the zoo rather, through the park. It was a chilly, windy afternoon. It was a really nice way to spend the afternoon. We had never heard of this zoo, Cape May Zoo. But I'll put a link in the show notes. If you're ever down there and you're ever looking for something to do, check it out. So on the way back to the rig, we stopped at Jesse Creek Winery and checked them out. And they were nice. Nice winery. Good wine. Then we headed back to the rig for dinner. The next day, packed up and drove north up to the Pine Barrens to Boondockers Welcome host location. So now Boondockers Welcome was bought, a few months ago by Harvest Host. They're still two separate memberships, and I think you get a discount if you join both. I'm not sure, and if you go through my links, you get discounts anyway. The downfall, the one shortcoming for Harvest Host is typically it's only one night. Some of them do put on their site blurb that they welcome 2 nights, but it's not often, and typically there's no hookups. However, we have found wineries with free 30 amp. We found one with 30 amp that you had to pay $10 a night for. So this was a Boondockers Welcome host location. So driving there, we learned that the Pine Barrens, which is the home of the New Jersey Devil, where the New Jersey Devil hockey team gets its name. And we found out, which I believe I already knew, but I wanted to make sure before I told you about it. That's the blueberry capital of the world. They're self-touting as that. And apparently there's a lot of blueberries in the Pine Barrens. Blueberry farms, wild blueberries. I'll put a link in the show notes to the blurb or the article that talks about the blueberry capital of the world. And there's also a lot of cranberry bogs here, which I did not know. And driving around, you could see the empty bogs, or the bogs that were not filled with water yet. They weren't producing cranberries yet. Been up on Cape Cod many times. Probably, almost 20 times. I've never seen a cranberry bog up there. I never actually sat down and said I'm going to go find one, but I've driven a lot on the Cape, and I've never come across one. Down here, it was very apparent that cranberries were popular. And apparently, something like 80 or 90% of the cranberries that are grown in that area go to Ocean Spray for their cranberry juice. Interesting. We did go over to a bog. There was one that was producing cranberries. This is a little early in the season for New Jersey blueberries. I'm sorry, New Jersey cranberries. But so I got a picture of that. It's over on Instagram, RelaxRV Podcast, if you want to see what a cranberry bog looks like. And I found a couple of cranberries on the side of the road. So check that out over at Instagram. So we got to the Boondockers Welcome location. We pulled in. We were going to be there for 2 nights. The host had 15 amp electric and water. We didn't need water because we filled up at the campground when we were leaving. So we can go easily 5 days on a tank of water without filling up our gray and black tanks also. So without really trying very much, we can do 5 nights. We've stretched it out to 6, which takes a little bit more work, and we actually did once where we did 7 nights. Took a little bit too much work to be comfortable for us. So we shoot for no more than 5 nights. So we had 2 nights at the wineries, and we were going to be here for 2 nights. So that's 4. So that wasn't going to be bad. We now to get there from Cape May Courthouse, we avoided the Garden State Parkway, and we took local roads, which is really nice. It's nice going through the little towns, getting off the highways, getting away from tolls. New York, New Jersey tolls are horrendous. But so after we got set up, we headed over to the Pine Barrens with our Jeep. Now, I had been in the Pine Barrens many years ago, and I'm figuring it to be about 20 years ago, maybe 25. Me and my brother went down with a canoe. We loaded up the canoe. We paddled up the Batstow River, camped for a night, and then paddled back down. That's all I'd ever seen of the rivers in the Pine Barrens. We would also go, me and my brothers, we would go ATVing there. We would bring our quads and trikes and go ATVing. You're not allowed to do that anymore, apparently. The only vehicles allowed in are ones that are street legal, insured and all that. So we drove into the Pine Barrens, I guess about 3 miles with the Jeep over, some real rough terrain. It was nice to get back into four-wheeling with the Jeep. Going through a little bit of mud and puddles and all of that. So then we finally parked and we hiked for about 4 miles or so through the Pine Barrens, which is neat, except for the most part, all you're seeing is scrub pines, blueberries, and sand. We did hike out to a river that on the map, it showed that there was a bridge and there was no bridge. So we did not get to cross the bridge. So we just continued on hiking. After that, went back to the rig, cooked dinner on the grill. Our host invited us to join them at their fire pit. And we sat there for a good hour and a half, just exchanging traveling experiences. Good time. The next day we drove 15 miles through the Pine Barrens with the Jeep. And so 15 miles at 15 miles an hour. Took us an hour to get there instead of 15 minutes or 20 minutes if we drove around the Pine Barrens. But we had all day, so we figured why not. So we went to Batstow Village, and I'll put a link in the show notes for it. It's a group of houses, barns, stores that there was